Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely explosive chapter of history. We're looking at Nigeria's first republic. When Nigeria gained independence back in 1960, it kicked off with just massive optimism as this brand new democratic experiment. But literally within just 6 years, that fragile system completely collapsed into a devastating military takeover. So how exactly did a nation born with such incredibly high expectations turn into a total political tinderbox? Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our agenda for today to trace this path from a structural tinderbox to a violent collapse. 1. The fractured foundation. 2. The action group split. 3. The disputed elections. 4. Operation Wetie erupts. And 5. The 1966 military intervention. Let's get started. Section 1. The fractured foundation, independence and regional divides. So when Nigeria became an independent state on October 1st, 1960, it adopted a federal parliamentary system. But the reality on the ground was perfectly mapped out by very distinct regional and ethnic identities. In the northern region, you had the Northern People's Congress, or NPC, dominated by the House of Fulani. Down in the western region, it was controlled by the Action Group, backed mostly by the Yoruba. And then the eastern region was led by the National Council of Nigerian Citizens, with strong backing from the Igbo population. This setup created a highly competitive, frankly non-cooperative environment where these parties just fought fiercely for their own specific regions. And this is absolutely crucial to understand. In this setup, national politics wasn't just some friendly rivalry, it was a dangerous zero-sum game. Losing an election didn't just mean you were sitting in the opposition. No, it meant losing your region's access to basic infrastructure, quality of education, and healthcare. Because the regions relied heavily on the federal center for resources, controlling the government in Lagos was literally viewed as a matter of pure regional survival. Which brings us to Section 2, the action group split, a house divided. And this brilliantly illustrates the heart of that internal conflict. The first major spark didn't happen between regions, but actually within the Western region's dominant party, the Action Group. You had Obafemi Awolowo on one side and his deputy Samuel Akintola on the other. Awolowo, the party founder, was socialist-leaning, heavily opposed to the northern-dominated NPC, and really wanted to ally with the eastern NCNC. Akintola, on the other hand, was much more conservative and pragmatic. He actually favored allying with the ruling Northern People's Congress to secure federal patronage for the West. These totally irreconcilable visions triggered a violent breakdown right on the floor of the Western House of Assembly in 1962. It got so bad the federal government had to step in and declare a state of emergency. That state of emergency had severe consequences, which really boiled down to one heavy number: 10. Following the emergency rule, Obafemi Awolowo and several of his allies were arrested and charged with treasonable felony, basically accused of plotting to overthrow the federal government. By 1963, Awolowo was handed a staggering 10-year prison sentence with hard labor. This effectively wiped out the federal opposition leadership. It left Akintola in power in the West, but the region's political cohesion was completely irreversibly fractured. Section 3. The disputed elections. The rigged catalyst. Let's walk through this timeline to see how public trust just completely evaporated. With the opposition fractured, the deeply controversial federal elections of '64 and regional elections of '65 basically poured gasoline on the fire. In 1962, we had that action group schism. Then, in 1963, highly disputed census figures gave the northern region a massive population advantage, which prompted huge southern boycotts and fraud allegations. Next, in 1964, the federal elections were marred by so much intimidation that the opposition partially boycotted them. This compounding failure of trust led straight to the ultimate tipping point, the Western regional elections of October 1965. Now, during those October '65 elections, the opposition claimed heavy rigging and systemic thuggery. They reported some wild irregularities: kidnapping of electoral officers, downright rejection of opposition nomination papers, 15 ruling party candidates mysteriously being declared unopposed, and falsified vote tallies favoring Akintola's ruling party. The ruling party firmly asserted these claims were totally fabricated by sore losers, maintaining that they held a legitimate mandate. But the opposition flatly rejected the results. And you guys, this dispute could not be contained to the ballot box. Section 4, Operation Wetie erupts, the Inferno. The total collapse of electoral integrity translated directly into street-level anarchy. This period became known for a chillingly specific, visceral tactic. The word is Wetie. It's a Yoruba phrase meaning soak it or drench it. It referred to the incredibly violent practice of mobs actually dousing political opponents, their homes, their vehicles, even their cocoa farms, with petrol before setting them on fire. The chaotic reality of Operation Wetie literally turned the Western region into a war zone. Let's move on and see how this builds because the chaos escalated super fast. Step 1, organized mobs target their political adversaries with arson. Step 2, the violence rapidly spreads outward from the capital of Ibadan to other major centers. Step 3, the regional government's curfews completely failed to restore order. I mean, even when federal forces were deployed, they had to be pulled back because many of the troops actually shared the ethnicity of the rioters, leading to divided loyalties. This paralyzed commerce, totally overwhelmed the police, and exposed a complete collapse of centralized authority. The human cost of all this? Staggering. While official government numbers reported around 160 casualties, some press and opposition estimates suggest that up to 2,000 people lost their lives during this devastating 6-month period. Property destruction was rampant. The First Republic was, for all intents and purposes, bleeding out. Section 5. The 1966 Military Intervention, the Aftermath. With politicians completely unable to solve the crisis, we hit the dramatic climax. On January 15, 1966, junior military officers cited the chaos, corruption, and electoral fraud to justify Nigeria's very first military coup. The leader of this coup, Major Chukwuma Kaduna Nziogu, made a famous broadcast. He stated, "Our enemies are the political profiteers, the swindlers, the men in high and low places that seek bribes and demand 10%. Nziogu really framed this intervention as a necessary idealistic revolution to clean up what the plotters saw as a broken, tribalist system. But as you'll see, military rule brings a totally different, incredibly harsh reality that sharply contrasts with the parliamentary politics of earlier years. Just look at this rapid-fire list from Nziogu's broadcast of offenses that were suddenly punishable by death. We're talking looting and arson, embezzlement, bribery or corruption, homosexuality and rape, sabotage or false alarms, and even failing to declare open loyalty to the revolution. This was emergency martial law. It was arbitrary, and it was incredibly severe. Now, here's the twist that really complicated things. The way the January coup was actually executed decimated the top political and military leadership of the northern and western regions, but it notably spared the leadership in the east. Because the key plotters were predominantly Igbo and the victims mostly northern and western, this pattern triggered incredibly fierce ethnic suspicions. So instead of uniting the country, the military intervention only deepened the exact same regional distrust that had plagued the republic from day one. Which leaves us with a really profound question. Can a fractured democracy actually be fixed by force? The history of Nigeria's First Republic suggests that violence usually just begets violence. The January 66 coup didn't solve the systemic issues at all. It merely led to a bloody counter-coup in July of that same year, pushing the nation dangerously close to a devastating civil war. What you should take away from this explainer is that when democratic institutions fail to impartially manage regional rivalries, the resulting vacuum is incredibly dangerous. It really makes you wonder, does military intervention ever truly solve systemic democratic failures, or does it just change the nature of the crisis? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating historical puzzle with me. Keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.